Welcome to NTD Good Morning.
Here are today's top stories. The Trump administration says it will partially fund food stamps for another month as the government shutdown drags on. What this could mean for millions of Americans.
Today is the first major election day during President Trump's second term. The outcome of several races across the U.S., including the New Jersey governor's race, the Virginia governor's race, and California's Prop 50, could all have implications for the direction the country is headed.
Meanwhile, here in New York City, the president is backing Andrew Cuomo over Democratic socialist Zohran Mamdani in the race for mayor.
And a new report suggests nearly $2 billion from foreign sources were donated to back left-wing groups here in America. At least one foreign organization is connected to the Chinese Communist Party.
The Supreme Court will decide this week whether President Trump has the legal authority to put reciprocal tariffs in place. Trump says he won't be attending the oral arguments as originally planned.
And Dodger Blue flooded downtown Los Angeles as fans celebrated another World Series win. The city came alive as players shared the victory with thousands of their fans.
This is NTD Good Morning. Live from our global headquarters in New York City, here are Stephanie Cox and Carrie Dunst.
Good morning. Thank you for joining us.
This is Tuesday, November 4th. You're watching NTD Good Morning. And of course, today is Election Day. So many elections across the country, and some with very high likelihood of affecting, as we mentioned, the course of the nation.
That's right. Get out and vote in your local elections if you're having city council votes and things like that. But of course, most of the eyes are on four key elections: the one in New York City, the two gubernatorial races in Jersey and Virginia, and of course, Prop 50 in California as to if the state will redistrict.
Lots going on. But first, we have a breaking news this morning. Former Vice President Dick Cheney has died at the age of 84, according to a statement from his family. It said his passing was due to complications of pneumonia and cardiac and vascular disease.
Cheney served alongside Republican President George W. Bush for 2 terms, from 2001 to 2009. He's considered one of America's most powerful modern vice presidents and the main architect for America's war on terror.
Next, the Trump administration says it will partially fund food stamps for November at reduced levels.
The federal government shutdown has now entered its second month, and millions of Americans are starting to feel the effects. Here's the latest on that.
The Trump administration says it will partially fund November's food stamp payments after a federal judge ordered the Department of Agriculture to act. According to a court filing, the agency will spend billions in contingency money, but no more. The USDA says it's relying on about $4.5 billion, about half of what it's normally needed for a full month of benefits. That means millions of low-income families could receive just half their usual benefits this month. Officials say they will not use tariff-related revenue to fully fund the month because that money supports school lunch programs. USDA Deputy Undersecretary Patrick Penn called the decision a no-win quandary. House Speaker Mike Johnson says the president wants to move money as quickly as possible to help struggling families, but can't do it alone.
So what the president said logically was, okay, Your Honor, if you're saying we can do it, I'll go for that, because I want SNAP to go to the people. It's the Democrats that stopped it, not us, so tell me how to do it. Because I have all my personnel here in the office, the legal minds and the number crunchers, and they're trying to figure out how this can be done. Give us some guidance. We're glad to do it.
The government shutdown has also forced many Head Start programs to close, cutting off early education and childcare for thousands of low-income families. The National Head Start Association warns that more than 65,000 children and families could soon lose vital services. The closures have left hundreds of staff members without pay. And speaking to Fox News Monday, Democratic Senator John Fetterman called on both parties' needs to set aside their differences and reopen the government.
Every union that's attached to this shutdown, they're all calling this has to end. If we're fighting for working families, why don't we agree with them and just do this?
House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries says Democrats are willing to work with Republicans, but health care needs to be addressed.
We will sit down with any Republican who is prepared in good faith to find a bipartisan path forward to reopening the government, to entering into a spending agreement that actually makes life better for the American people, not worse.
The USDA says it's working with states to issue partial food stamp payments as quickly as possible, but warns it could take weeks to reach all recipients. As the shutdown enters day 35, it is now tied for the longest in U.S. history. It now matches a standoff during Trump's first term when the administration clashed with Democrats over funding for a border wall.
And the U.S. Travel Association is warning Congress that the ongoing shutdown could bring travel chaos during the busy Thanksgiving holiday. Air traffic controller shortages have already caused thousands of flight delays and cancellations nationwide.
Industry leaders say the shutdown has cost the travel sector $4 billion so far. Secretary of Transport Sean Duffy says safety remains the top priority and significant delays are unavoidable without enough controllers.
And you've been hearing it. Today is Election Day in the Big Apple, and President Trump made it clear who he wants to see as the next mayor.
Trump urged voters yesterday to vote for Andrew Cuomo in the highly watched race. He wants to prevent Zohran Mamdani, a self-described Democrat socialist, from becoming the next head of the nation's largest city. NTD's Daniel Monahan has more on the race.
Zohran Mamdani, the Democratic Party nominee, was leading in polls on the eve of Election Day. He was heavily favored to become the next mayor. President Trump chimed in on the contest on Truth Social yesterday, writing, "I would much rather see a Democrat who has had a record of success win than a communist with no experience and a record of complete and total failure." Trump said he was considering reducing federal funding to the city of over 8 million residents to the very minimum as required if they elected Mamdani. Trump wrote, "It can only get worse with a communist at the helm, and I don't want to send as president good money after bad." The president says he strongly believes New York City will be a, quote, complete and total economic and social disaster should Mamdani win. The race also includes Republican Curtis Sliwa, who is running far behind Mamdani and Cuomo, who ran as an independent candidate after losing the Democratic primary to Mamdani. Trump warned voters not to vote for Sliwa, calling it a vote for Mamdani. Cuomo yesterday said he believes he had the momentum, posting the results of an Atlas Intel poll which concluded on Monday. It found 39% of voters favored the former governor. Mamdani garnered 44% of the vote, while Sliwa took in 16%. Atlas Intel has a track record of being among the most accurate pollsters in both the 2020 and 2024 presidential elections. Mamdani responded to Trump's criticism in an interview on CNN yesterday.
I think you could clearly see that Donald Trump is threatened by our campaign. He's threatened by it because, like his, we've diagnosed the crisis in working class New Yorkers' lives, the cost of living. But unlike him, we're actually going to deliver on that.
It's impossible to think that New York City can have a communist mayor. He's a communist. He's not a socialist, by the way. There's a big difference.
The Democratic nominee released this video yesterday to remind New Yorkers of his vision of socialism for the city.
There are many who say that a democratic socialist vision of governance for New York is impossible, that our ideas are untested. To them, I answer, we need look only to our past for proof of how socialism can shape our future.
Mamdani promises to Trump-proof New York City by strengthening its sanctuary status to shield illegal immigrants. Elon Musk also threw his support behind Cuomo, posting to X yesterday for people to vote for the former governor. President Trump is also making a last-minute push in New Jersey and Virginia ahead of today's governor's races, holding tele-rallies. Trump wrote on Truth Social, "Why would anyone vote for New Jersey and Virginia gubernatorial candidates Mikey Sherrill and Abigail Spanberger when they want transgender for everybody, men playing in women's sports, high crime, and the most expensive energy prices almost anywhere in the world?" Republican Jack Ciattarelli is running for governor of New Jersey, while Winsome Earl Sears is vying to head the state of Virginia. Daniel Monahan, NTD News.
And joining us now to discuss the New York City mayoral race is NTD News contributor Mike Leon. He's also the host of the podcast Can We Please Talk? Also with us is AJ Bruno, a Republican political strategist and journalist. Thank you so much, gentlemen, to both of you for joining. Mike, starting with you, Trump, of course, yesterday, as we just saw, gave his endorsement to Cuomo, and he reiterated the Mamdani attack ad that's been running throughout all the football games and taking up a lot of airwaves. It says a vote for Sliwa is a vote for Mamdani. So what are your thoughts on Trump not endorsing the Republican and coming to somebody who has long been a political rival?
Yeah, political rival is an understatement, Kerry. Good morning to you guys. I was just reading something from back in 2020 in October when Cuomo was on his book tour and Trump was lambasting him on social media, if you recall, about the COVID deaths. So we've come a long way from 2020, huh, Kerry? But in terms of the endorsement part, if you look at the data in terms of Trump's endorsements back in 24, I think about 74% of the nationwide candidates that he had endorsed ended up winning during the race. So, I mean, there's some potential boost there, potentially for some red Republican voters in the state. It is interesting. We've talked about this, Kerry, before about Curtis Sewa, like of all the times where the Republicans could run somebody in New York City to potentially win the mayor's race, maybe somebody in the mold of what Giuliani was back in the early 2000s, late 90s, early 2000s, somebody that had worked in the city, had worked to fight crime and stuff like that, as opposed to Sewa, who has done more like community-based type policing, if you want to put, for lack of a better term. And they had a chance here to run somebody like that, and Trump never gave him the full endorsement and ended up going to the independent candidate in Cuomo. So what I make of the endorsement, we'll see if it actually nets out into any voters. Right now, the polling average, according to Real Clear Politics, has Mamdani up by a decent margin. And I do think that folks should go out there into the ballot box, exercise their right to vote. You need more voices and more choices. I never thought Sewa should drop out of the race. I wasn't in agreement with that, and I think he should remain on the ballot as well.
Yeah, and it's hard to say if Cuomo as an independent didn't run, how Sliwa would have done in the climate. Certainly very reputable on one of the top two issues, which is public safety, the other being affordability. AJ, I'd love to get your thoughts on Trump coming in for Cuomo.
Well, I think at this point he feels he has to do something. Cuomo is probably by all accounts running better than Sliwa if you look at the polls. And unfortunately, there's not enough Republicans or Republican-leaning votes. I mean, it would be great if Sliwa won. He's obviously the best candidate in the field. And it's sad that, we have to basically root for Cuomo, someone who's not a good guy, right? But compared to Mamdani, I think it's clear that's the obvious choice. You've got to stop him from winning. Is it possible? I don't know, but I felt Trump seemed like he needed to do something about it. So yeah, I think he just thought he had to try to sway the vote in some way. We'll see if it's enough, but this is someone who, if he gets elected, if Mamdani gets elected, I think it'll be very bad for the city. So even Cuomo, at least you have the devil you know is the devil you don't. And it would completely destroy the city. I mean, people complain about the problems now, but you have someone like that come in there. He's going to spend most of his time fighting with Trump and not actually fixing the problems in the city. So it was necessary to rally the vote. You don't want to split it. It'd be nice if it was for Sliwa, but I don't think he really has that much of a chance of winning here. So maybe Cuomo can run an inside straight somehow, pull it off. We'll see. But the polling just looks, so not favorable. But I guess crazier things have happened, and if somehow this helps get him over the line, then he can claim credit for it afterwards. But I guess you got to do something rather than remain silent at this point.
Yeah, Mike, to AJ's point, that last Atlas poll released yesterday, one of the more reliable polling companies. It has Mamdani at 44, Cuomo at 39, and Sliwa at 16. Now, Cuomo has rallied. There was a double-digit lead. It's single-digit, and that was before Trump's endorsement. Sliwa heavily favored in Staten Island. That voted for Trump in the last election, the only borough to go for Trump. So if Trump's endorsement can pull half of Sliwa's 16, that's the 1 point difference to overcome Mamdani. What do you think is going to happen? Not to put you on the spot, but that's why you're here.
No, I know. Kerry, I think you did the Captain Obvious move of Donald Trump won Staten Island. I think everybody knows that because of all the Republican leaning votes. But that's back to what Adrian was just saying. Like there isn't enough Republican leaning votes to potentially get Cuomo over that hump. I think the one thing that we've all learned in the political cycle from 2016 on is that you can't trust any of the polling data. It's just a snapshot in time. But if you look at all of the different polls, Mamdani has a clear above average. And again, I want to go back to something that was just said before. Like Mamdani is trying something new. Right. First off, he's not a communist. The president said that there's a clear distinction between the two. Yeah, I know it. My dad left the communist country. He's not a communist. OK, even the Communist Party of New York has said Mamdani is not a communist. If you watch that interview that guy did recently on an outlet, I forget which one it was. But so he's not a communist. That's the first thing. But is he going to try something different that's going to get some rejection with respect to council members and with respect to maybe the governing, the renters tenant board, yes, he's going to try some things that are going to, meet head on with folks, and they're not going to like certain things, right? Especially look at the police stuff with Eric Adams and the new officers that are going to be instituted. Mamdani has said he wants to keep the current budget of the 33,000 plus police officers versus adding more community safety folks and people that go on mental health crisis calls and deal with the homelessness issue. So there's a difference of the policy execution, but a mayor's not a king, right? A mayor oversees a municipality and has to work with other people within the municipality. So he's not going to do all of these crazy things. And no mayor, de Blasio got hate, Dinkins got hate, Ed Koch got hate towards his last term there. Giuliani, obviously, we know the pivot from obviously America's mayor to what happened there. Every New York City mayor gets hate. Eric Adams was seen as the next rising star in the Democratic Party, and now he's not even, I don't even think he's in the Democratic Party. So that's what happens when you become New York City mayor. It's the biggest spotlight in the country. It's going to get over magnified as well. There are certain things that he's not within his purview that he's not going to be able to do on day one for sure.
Yeah, and you mentioned cops and Adams' efforts yesterday. AJ, current outgoing mayor Adams, who has endorsed Cuomo, he's looking to sort of preempt some of the things that Mamdani is against. He wants to try to get 5,000 added cops instead of Mamdani's desire to replace those hires with public safety workers. He also is saying he wants to pack the rental advisory board to try to preempt a rental freeze. How effective might these efforts be should Mamdani win?
Well, if he wins, he'll probably reverse it. But I mean, his choice is either do nothing or, at least make a statement here and then put it in his court to try to undo it. So, yeah, remember, this is someone who called the NYPD racist, violent, and wicked. He tried to walk that back, and just like, people say things that are outrageous and they're running for office and they try to undo it. But I think anyone who's paying attention remembers the kind of comments he's made. So he doesn't have any respect for them. Clearly, he'll undo this. He wants to freeze the current force at its current level. Obviously, you need more. You don't need less police there. You got to let them do their jobs, let them be effective. If you don't let them do that, then clearly it's useless. But he's talking about crazy things like sending out these mental health resources in situations which could be dangerous, could get people killed, or, so he has no idea what he's doing. He doesn't have any respect for the police in the city there. And that's where you actually need them. You need cops in the city like New York actually doing their jobs. He gets enough worries as it is, right? So when he comes in there, if he undoes what Adams is implementing, which he almost surely will, it's going to be less safe for the people there. There's going to be more crime. And God forbid something more happen. I mean, if people have forgotten about what happened in that city, just over 2 decades ago, you need more police on the streets there to keep people safe, not less. So it's a good idea for Adams to do that. Is it going to stay? I mean, almost certainly not. $300 million, 5,000 officers, great idea. But he's going to undo it. So I think it was the right decision to make him, take that back. As for the rent thing, it sounds great to, freeze the rent, no raises whatsoever, but who's going to want to own any units in that case? And it's not going to work. So these ideas, whether they're socialist or communist, they've always been proven to not work wherever they're implemented. It's just going to be a disaster. People will have buyer's remorse in another 4 years. But I think it's sad that they have to learn the hard way, when I can tell you right now it's stupid and it's not going to work out. But people want free stuff, or they want to blame whatever, just listen to whatever Zohran is saying. It's insane. But yeah, Adams is right in this case. Unfortunately, I don't think it's going to stay, though.
And gentlemen, we're pretty much out of time. I just want to get a very quick comment from you both. Headline grab or any legitimacy to some GOP congressional folks saying that they might use the insurrection clause of the 14th Amendment to remove Mamdani. To do that, they'd have to get 6 Democrats to come across the aisle. It seems unlikely, but certainly a way to get a saucy headline out there. But in theory, it could be done. AJ, your thoughts quickly, and then Mike?
Yeah, it sounds like a Hail Mary, but I'm for anything they could possibly do, because you let him run the city the way he wants for 4 years. There's not going to be much of a New York after that. So do what you got to do. Is that going to work out? I have trouble thinking you'll find 6 Democrats to agree with that. But I know Trump said he'd withhold funds and maybe bring in the National Guard. So you got to do something to fight fire with fire here. We'll see what happens, but I'm a little skeptical.
And Mike, a brief comment?
I'll go with Carrie. It sounds crazy. So it is crazy. It won't happen.
All right, gentlemen, thank you for joining us this morning. We're going to be watching with great interest tonight, and by this time tomorrow, we should know more. We'll see you soon.
Thanks.
Bye, Gary.
And make sure you tune in tonight, November 4th at 7 p.m. to get the latest election results with live analysis from our data reporters and on-the-ground teams. NTD's Steve Lance and Tiffany Meyer are going to bring you our live special coverage of all the biggest races from New York's mayoral election to the gubernatorial races in New Jersey and Virginia. That's tonight, 7 p.m. here on NTD. Don't miss it.
Does President Trump have the authority to impose reciprocal tariffs? The Supreme Court is hearing the case this week.
But Trump says he no longer plans to attend the proceedings. NTD correspondent Jason Blair brings us more.
I think it's the most important decision, one of the most important decisions in the history of our country.
The U.S. Supreme Court is hearing arguments this week on whether Donald Trump has infringed on federal law with his tariffs. Lower courts ruled that the president didn't have the authority to use an emergency power law to push his tariffs into place. Trump says it would be a disaster if the Supreme Court fails to overturn the lower court's ruling.
Without our being able to use tariffs freely, openly, and in every way, we really would suffer tremendously from a national security standpoint. The national security of our country is at stake.
However, despite this, President Trump says that he no longer plans to attend oral arguments for the case this week as originally planned. He says he doesn't want to draw attention to himself.
It's not about me, it's about our country. I wanted to go so badly, I just don't want to do anything to deflect the importance of that decision.
Recently, China backtracked on its threats to limit rare earth exports in a new deal with the U.S. after President Trump threatened China last month with a 100% tariff increase.
China, that was going to be a disaster for the world, and I was able to settle it very quickly, very easily, because I was able to use tariffs.
And last month, President Trump terminated trade talks with Canada over an ad featuring former President Ronald Reagan speaking against protectionist measures. The president suggested that the ad was intended to interfere with the Supreme Court case. The case is being heard on Wednesday. President Trump is scheduled to speak in Miami at the American Business Forum. Other speakers at the event include former CEO Eric Schmidt, U.S. Special Envoy for the Middle East Steve Witkoff, and Argentinian President Javier Milei. Jason Blair, NTD News.
Thank you, Jason. And as the Supreme Court prepares to take up those arguments tomorrow, top administration officials will be watching closely. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent says he'll attend the Supreme Court hearing, calling the tariff fight a matter of national security.
Bessent told Fox News that Trump's tariff policy is helping balance global trade and prevent an economic crisis. And coming up in Virginia, from a fierce fight for governor to a scandal shaking the Attorney General's race, Jack Bradley tells us what today's election could mean for both parties and what it could tell us about voter sentiment on the first 10 months of President Trump's second term. Stay with us for that. We'll be right back.
Today is Election Day, and while it's not a presidential or midterm year, the outcome of several races could have major implications for where the country is headed.
NTD's Washington correspondent Jack Bradley has more on the elections in Virginia.
New Jersey and Virginia are the only states in the nation to choose their governor 1 year after the presidential election. And here in Virginia, it's the only state where a governor cannot run 2 consecutive terms. Vying for the seat is Democrat Abigail Spanberger and Republican Winsome Earl Sears. Polls show Spanberger with a steady lead in a state that's leaned blue in recent presidential elections. Spanberger, a former CIA officer and 3-term congresswoman, is pitching herself as the change candidate, hoping to win back the governor's mansion for Democrats. She says her top priority is the economy, arguing against the Trump administration's federal workforce cuts.
We need a governor who will speak up when careless, chaotic, reckless economic policies out of Washington hurt our economy.
But Abigail has real, practical plans to grow the economy and strengthen Virginia schools and lower the cost of everything from housing to health care to energy.
Earl Sears is the current lieutenant governor, a Marine Corps veteran and Jamaican immigrant. She's running on the economy with a message to keep a good thing going after 4 years of Republican leadership under Governor Glenn Youngkin. She also warns of her opponent's energy policies.
She wants to put us back in something called the Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative, which means they're going to tell you what kind of stove you can buy, and it's only electric. They're going to tell you what car you can drive, and it's only electric.
That race, and also the race in New Jersey, is going to be energy. Both of the Democrats are going to drive the energy prices through the roof.
In the race for Virginia's Attorney General, polls are plunging for the Democrat candidate Jay Jones. That's after violent text messages Jones sent while a state delegate in 2022 came to light. In the messages, Jones wished for the assassination of the former Republican Speaker of the Virginia House and his children.
I am ashamed. I am embarrassed. And I'm sorry. I cannot take back what I said. But you have my word that I will always be accountable for my mistakes.
The incumbent Republican Attorney General Jason Miyares has been marginally ahead in the polls, and the race is likely to be close.
All of the areas of federal and state local law department, how can they ever take you seriously, be the top prosecutor, knowing that you view that children should die to advance a political agenda?
It's not just who wins, but by how much. That could be a good barometer to determine next year's midterm elections and voter approval of President Trump's first 10 months in office in his second term. Reporting from Richmond, Virginia, Jack Bradley, NTD News.
And as we just saw, the race for the governor of Virginia is in the national spotlight today as well. Joining us for a look into the race is Jace White. He's Director of Federal Affairs at the National Right to Work Committee. Jace, thanks for joining. For those unfamiliar with the local Virginia politics, can you help us get the context on the two candidates?
That's right, and thank you for having me on. The Virginia governor's race in particular is going to be focused a lot on this right to work issue. Abigail Spanberger voted twice when she was in Congress as a member of Congress to repeal every state right to work law in the country, including Virginia's. Winsome Sears has made this a very important part of her campaign. What's on the line here with this right to work policy is whether workers can be forced to pay union dues in the state of Virginia. This is a policy that exists in 26 states, right to work, that says that you can't. And that's been a big economic boost to the states that have it. And it's something that unfortunately, Spanberger and everyone in her party are threatening to repeal. That's going to make a big economic difference in the state of Virginia, and it's one of the most important questions that voters are going to have to answer as they go to the polls today.
Now, National Right to Work Committee is in support of free market principles. So why do you feel that the Democratic candidate is going to definitely go against right to work?
Well, partly it's, as I said, there were 2 times that she voted when she was in Congress to get rid of this policy that we have in Virginia. The other reason is that it's an important part of her political base to be taking money from labor unions. The people that run these unions are the people that directly benefit from when workers can be forced to pay union dues. They would much rather be able to take money from people's pockets without their permission. And so it's a big source of campaign funding for Spanberger and the other members of her party. And so this is why they would love to have Virginians be forced to pay dues to unions. But it's not something that most people would agree with. In fact, 80% of Virginians and people across the country say that they support a worker's right to choose whether or not to join and pay dues to a union. So it's something that's going to put her on the wrong side of a lot of people who are considering voting for her today. And I think that's why you've seen Winsome Sears on the other side take a very strong position in support of workers' rights here in Virginia.
Yeah, this concept of right to work is probably something that people don't really understand the nuance as it relates to elections. As you mentioned, these unions are very powerful in their endorsements and the party that they tend to align with. But with any membership, there is a value exchange, and unions do represent the interests of their constituents. But membership by law can't be forced, according to the 1935 National Labor Relations Act. But this has become a very gray area of the law, which resulted in Taft-Hartley and this concept of a right-to-work state. A state has to choose if it will be right to work or not. So to people who aren't really familiar with this can be confounding. Can you just sort of break down this concept of a state and how it has to choose to either, allow for right to work or, because it seems like the law is specifically against forcing membership, but is it a loophole? Is it a gray area? How has this come about?
The question is whether somebody can be forced to pay dues and fees to a labor union. Now, you don't have to become a member, but you are still, if you're in a unionized workplace, required to pay dues and fees to a union in order to keep that job if you're not in a right-to-work state. And so the question that states have to answer is whether they're going to pass a right-to-work law which prevents workers from being forced to pay dues to a union that they may not support. And, a lot of unions are ones that people want to be members of, but many more are either corrupt or ineffective, or in the case of many of the ones here in Virginia, are just overtly political, supporting candidates that workers themselves may not support with money that was taken from their paychecks. And so it's an important freedom and it's an important choice that we want to give to workers. And they only have that choice of whether to support a union if they live in a right-to-work state. And that's what's on the line in Virginia in the elections today.
Just out of intellectual curiosity, if this National Labor Relations Act was passed 90 years ago, stating that you can't force people into joining a union, do they just not allow you to take the job then unless you do join the union? Is that sort of where the loophole lies? Because it just seems like we passed this long ago that you can't coerce somebody to be a member of a union, but it seems like that law didn't say that you could withhold employment. Is that sort of how this operates?
Well, you can be a non-member basically just on paper, and you can still be required as a condition of your employment to give money to the union that controls that workplace. And so if you are in a job and that workplace becomes unionized and you're not in a right-to-work state, you will be fired if you refuse to pay dues to that union, no matter what you think of it.
Wow, and so this election then highlights this issue nationally. Where does the country stand since this is a state-by-state law? And do you see the Trump administration potentially trying to challenge that federally to reverse what's on the books in the states through the Supreme Court potentially?
Ultimately, our goal at the national level is to pass a National Right to Work Act that takes out those provisions in federal law that allow for compulsory union dues in the first place. Right now, there are 26 states that have right to work laws, and we have a record number of congressional co-sponsors in the previous Congress for the National Right to Work Act. We have a growing number now in both the House and the Senate. And so that's our goal, is to build up enough support for this bill at the federal level so that we can end forced union dues for all Americans. That's a goal in the future. And right now in Virginia, the voters are going to have to decide whether they want to protect their state's right to work protections that they already have.
Well, right to work certainly on the ballot in Virginia, and potentially something we'll be looking out for in the next year or so to come, as this certainly has national implications. Appreciate your commentary today. Jace White, good to see you.
Thank you.
Thanks to Jack for that. And in New Jersey, the closely contested governor's race between Democrat Mikey Sherrill and Republican Jack Ciattarelli is also drawing national attention. Have a look.
The campaign for New Jersey governor is shattering spending records, and the latest polls show the two candidates are in a tight race. Residents in the Garden State have this to say about their biggest policy concerns.
I would say the number one thing probably is taxes. The cost of living is very high. A lot of retired people can't afford to live here, so they're moving out of state. And I think that's probably the biggest issue that has to be addressed.
The main thing with this race is that the governors, whoever wins, that they think about the people. People are suffering, and it's too much politics going on, and we want to hear about the real issues. We want, in the urban areas, in the inner cities, we need help.
Ashley Koenig, the director of the Eagleton Center for Public Interest Polling at Rutgers University, agrees that cost of living is front and center in this election.
We had quite a utility rate hike during the summer that New Jerseyans acutely felt. This was something that was very evident in monthly bills over the summer. And this really kind of kick-started both campaigns after a kind of sleepy, dormant summer. of not much going on except for lieutenant governor picks. And so when this came onto the stage, this kind of became the personification of the affordability issue that is the defining issue of the election cycle. So affordability, cost of living, incredibly high within New Jersey. New Jersey has, if not the highest, one of the highest property taxes on average in the country.
The two governors' races this year are typically viewed as an early read on the midterm elections next year. Democrats are hoping victories in New Jersey and Virginia could create some early momentum for the 2026 elections, while Republicans will see the results as a test on the Trump administration.
And a new poll suggests that nearly 1 million New Yorkers are ready to leave New York City if the Democratic candidate for mayor, Zohran Mamdani, is elected. According to the survey conducted by JL Partners for the Daily Mail, nearly 1 in 10 New Yorkers said they would definitely leave the city if that happens. Joining us to discuss is the CEO of the John Birch Society, Wayne Morrow. Wayne, good morning. Good to have you with us today.
Yes, good morning. How are you? Good morning. Thank you.
To start with, your response to these survey findings.
I'm not surprised. I can't even believe we have a Marxist running for mayor. I mean, think about it, really? I see the same polls, and I think people don't need, well, he said he wanted to tax the rich. Well, my goodness, you're in New York City, capital city 101 for economics. I'm not surprised. But, if I look at the platform of the socialists running for mayor, and the reason why he's so popular, he wants to give everything away for free food, free taxis, free bus rides. That's a pretty good deal. It's all free, but somebody's going to have to pay for it.
How do you
I think once people see through that, it's a lie. Yep.
So how do you parse out where people say there's a line between what he identifies as a democratic socialist and communism? You've called him a Marxist. These are more kind of pure descriptions of that final stage that democratic socialism says it's heading towards. But he does not identify as a communist. How would you respond to the two characterizations of him?
Well, he said he's a Democrat socialist. Well, socialism is really isn't communism. And it's really, it's a word salad. I mean, all the things he wants to do is pure communism, which is Marxism. Stores that supply food, free taxis, everything is free, rent control. That's basically what he's talking about. If you look at the communist Marxist plan, that's what it is. It's all state government control. There's no free market enterprise at all.
And that's what he talks about. Yeah. What effect do you think this could have on the city if, 1 million New Yorkers leave the city?
Well, I hear that. They may not have a choice economically, but here's a question I really want to think about. All those people live in New York. I don't believe they're all communist Marxists. I think they want to have a decent living and be left alone. So my call is folks who have a business, who are working Wall Street, and there's plenty of those, you should go out and vote. There's more of you than them. And I can't believe they would give their city away to this character. I can't believe it. I just can't believe it. So I would say, quit being passive, complacent, get busy, go vote. That's my answer to them.
And what kind of outcomes do you expect, aside from all these free social services? What do you expect that kind of city to be characterized by if Mamdani does win?
I think you'll have a very difficult time for high taxes and more cost of living to live in New York City. Force companies to leave the city. That's what would happen. It would not be a good place. I mean, you have a city tax right now, correct? I think it's 4.5%, 5%, plus a state of New York tax. I think it makes it more difficult to do business. So people will relocate, maybe New Jersey, maybe Virginia, someplace in the South. But they'll have no choice if they want to survive. If that's the goal, then that's exactly what will happen. I believe you're in New York, so exactly what I'm talking about. It's a prescription for death, for any growth. I mean, it's It's hard to believe that New York City would even consider a Democrat, socialist, Marxist, communist, even a mayor. It's hard to believe. So it's time for Americans who really prosper in New York to wake up and participate in the process. And we have the same problem in New Jersey. I know you earlier on in our news clip, you talk about New Jersey. There's two distinct races. You have a Democrat running ex-congressman or congressman who has about a 5% voting record constitutionally, per our information, and the Republican who's a business person running against each other. And it's amazing to even think of this. To me, that's really it's black and white, oil and water kind of a vote. I mean, to me, it's pretty simple. So people may gravitate to New Jersey if the Republican wins.
Now, the John Birch Society has long advocated against communist encroachment here in the U.S. If you could talk to me about this idea and what are the warnings against it and the signs you see here from a historical perspective and what the U.S. stands for.
Yes, good question. Well, we've been talking about it since 1958. You can find information on our website, jbs.org. What are some of the things we talked about? More and more government, right? More and more personal restrictions on your liberties. Money backed by gold and silver be backed by nothing. Now we have fiat currency, which is paper dollars. That's why we have a $36.8 trillion debt. More control over your school systems, more government controls. Getting involved in foreign domestic affairs, mostly foreign affairs that would cost us more and more monies. Basically debauch of the currency. All those things we talked about back then, that was the plan. Psychological warfare in Americans, dumbing down of Americans. You know that a third of the United States can't read, all that was predicted would happen in the late 50s. And as time marches forward, here we are. And people quote us all the time. Steve Bannon, Alex Jones, and other people said, "God, you guys have been right. You're the OGs. You've been talking about this for many, many years." And here we are. I mean, now here we are talking about who's a socialist or a communist or a Marxist running for mayor of the largest city in the world as far as capitalism goes. I mean, we talked about that. And I think it's been very slow and clever, and people just basically want to sleep.
Great to have your perspective on this. Wayne Morrow from the John Birch Society, thank you so much for your time this morning.
Thank you so much for the opportunity, and I hope New York stays sound and not communist, socialist, whatever you want to pick. I hope that works out today. I really do.
We'll be watching.
And Democrat redistricting is on the ballot today. Millions of voters across California will cast their ballots to weigh a plan known as Proposition 50. If successful, it will likely allow Democrats to gain 5 more seats in the U.S. House of Representatives. California Governor Gavin Newsom and state Democrats pushed through the redistricting plan over the summer in response to Texas's move to redraw its own maps. Missouri, North Carolina, and Ohio also recently redrew their congressional maps. More states, including Florida, Illinois, Louisiana, and Maryland, among others, are all considering similar options. Around 60% of likely voters plan to support the proposition, according to a recent Berkeley poll. Former California Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger criticized the measure, saying, quote, "They are trying to fight for democracy by getting rid of the democratic principles of California." Welcome back to NTD Good Morning. I'm Carrie Dunst. If you're just joining us now, here are some of today's top headlines. Breaking news this morning, former Vice President Dick Cheney has died at the age of 84, according to a statement from his family. It said his passing was due to complications of pneumonia and cardiac as well as vascular disease. Cheney served alongside Republican President George W. Bush for 2 terms, from 2001 to 2009, and is considered one of America's most powerful modern vice presidents and the main architect for America's war on terror. And it is Election Day in New York City, and President Trump is making his preference clear. He's urging voters to back independent Andrew Cuomo over Democratic nominee Zohran Mamdani, who he's calling a communist. A new poll shows the race tightening, with Mamdani's lead shrinking as Cuomo gains late momentum. Meanwhile, Trump also made a last-minute push for GOP candidates in New Jersey and Virginia ahead of today's governor's races, holding tele-rallies. And the Trump administration will partially fund food stamps for November as the shutdown now enters its second month. The USDA says about half the usual benefits will go out using limited contingency funds. Meanwhile, Head Start programs are closing nationwide, leaving thousands of families without childcare as the shutdown ties the record for the longest in U.S. history. Those are this morning's top headlines. With that, Steph, over to you.
Thank you, Carrie. And are everyday Americans feeling the impact of the government shutdown? NTD Sam Wong was out on the National Mall in D.C. to hear from the people.
Are you feeling the effect of the shutdown yet?
Me personally, no. But I can feel it just from observing some of the people around me that work within the government that have missed a couple of checks.
Not really. Basically, the only thing that I've noticed is my mom sent me a package and it was a week late, but other than that, that's about it.
Yes, I'm actually a business owner, and we do construction and government contracting, so we definitely feel that.
Feeling the effect of having all the museums and things closed here in Washington, but we're still enjoying the time here.
A little bit of a bummer, huh?
A little bit of a bummer. I would hope that the people that we elect in government would, come together and get this thing open.
Which political party do you think is to blame for this shutdown?
Man, they're both guilty. They need to find a solution soon because people need to eat.
Democrats, I think they are focusing on things that aren't as important as the bigger picture.
I think it's the political administration that we have in place right now because he's trying to control things that he really has no business trying to control.
It seems it's pretty obvious that it must be the Democrat Party because they've been voting on it 13 times to get it open, or whatever the count is by now. It was a clean CR 7-8 months ago that they voted, so why can't they just keep extending it?
Politically, which party do you think is winning in terms of messaging?
I think the Republican Party. I'm trying to be objective about it, to hear both sides, and I don't see what the Democrats are trying, what their long game is.
Honestly, the Democratic Party, I think they're winning currently. It's just this game, the Republicans are saying, do the right thing, sign, open up the government, but we don't know what's in this budget plan that, Democrats might feel a little hesitant about.
I think the Republicans are winning this right now. It's hurting more of us as Democrats than it is Republicans. We're the ones that usually are the workers, and we're the ones that support health care and support rights for everybody. And they're trying to take that away.
I think the Republicans, because they've made it clear what needs to happen for this to be resolved, and I think the Democrats are being stubborn, and I think it's coming at the cost of real people. I've been hearing all over that SNAP is about to run out of food and people are going to suffer. So I think it really is just, we're talking about common sense.
And here in New York City, the polls have been open since 6 a.m. this morning. Our reporter Arlene Richards is at the FIT polling station on 28th Street in Chelsea. Arlene, what are you seeing so far?
Well, so far, Steph, we've seen a lot of voters coming in, trickling in, as you said, since 6 a.m. here at the FIT polling station. They're all going to cast their final votes for the mayor of this city, as well as other candidates. And also the candidates on Monday were out across the city making their final pitches for those votes. Starting out with former Governor Andrew Cuomo. He was in Flushing and Manhattan's Chinatowns. Then he made his way across the 5 boroughs, visiting the Bronx, Manhattan, and Brooklyn. And at a rally in Washington Heights, Cuomo said we need to clean up this city. Let's watch.
We need to clean up the city. We need a better public school system. We need more police to keep us safe on the streets. And we need to be able to stand up to Donald Trump and fight for New York.
Zohran Mamdani also made his way across the city. Zohran Mamdani, he started out his final day of campaigning in Harlem and Brooklyn. Then he ended his tour in Astoria, Queens. He gave his final speech to thank all who helped him, and he also made a pitch for lowering costs. Let's watch.
What our success will show is that it is not enough to diagnose the despair in working class Americans' lives. You have to actually deliver on the agenda. And that is what we intend to do each and every day while we are in office.
Curtis Sliwa, he started his day on Monday on the rails in Brooklyn, then on to Staten Island, and he set aside some time to speak with Fox News about not dropping out. Let's watch.
You think you understand I'm going the whole 9 yards? I have Republican support. We don't fold. We don't run. We're not frightened. We're not scared like the Democrats who are, oh, if Zohran wins, I'm running to Florida. Who said that? Andrew Cuomo.
And you know, Steph, one of the things that all of the candidates are agreeing on is that all New Yorkers should come out and vote. Back to you.
Well, great report there, Arlene, and I can see behind you things are just getting started, and I know you'll be out there all day reporting for us. I look forward to seeing more updates and chatting with you soon. Thanks, Arlene. And thanks to Sam Wong for that report. Next, nearly $2 billion from foreign sources donated to back left-wing groups and policies in the United States.
At least one of the foreign organizations is connected to the Chinese Communist Party. That's according to a new report by the group Americans for Public Trust. NTD's Melina Weisskopf brings us the details.
Protests for green energy, diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives, and other social justice policies like anti-immigration enforcement, bankrolled by foreign money. A nonpartisan report uncovered 5 foreign charities funneling money to left-wing groups. One called the Children's Investment Fund Foundation has ties to the Chinese Communist Party.
We were able to trace that over $550 million in foreign money has come from his UK-based charity into US-based organizations.
$550. That is a third of the entirety of Kamala Harris's presidential campaign.
Right.
Another group called the Oak Foundation has contributed at least $8.2 million to a center that funds protests to abolish ICE, the U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement. While the United States technically has laws preventing foreign nationals and governments from giving money directly to campaign PACs and candidates, grassroots advocacy on big policy disputes flies under the radar.
You cannot win without all these outside groups that are the 501c3s and the 501c4s. You cannot tell me you can win today without C3s and C4s on the outside. Guess what's not regulated by the FEC?
Yeah.
Issue advocacy campaigns, voter education, protests. So there's these huge loopholes on the state and federal level.
Her group, Americans for Public Trust, is working to get the loopholes closed. Today in Michigan, Sutherland will testify to support a bill to do so. Some states are already working to stop foreign adversaries from purchasing land or contributing to state ballot issue campaigns. Reporting from Washington, D.C., Melina Weisskopf, NTD News.
The University of Pennsylvania has called in the FBI after hackers breached its systems and sent offensive emails to alumni.
The messages sent on Halloween from university accounts slammed Penn as elitist, woke, and completely non-merit-based.
University officials say the cyber attack affected select information systems and that they're working with federal agents and cybersecurity experts to contain the breach. The university condemned the emails as highly offensive and not reflective of its values.
The FBI has yet to comment. Similar hacks have recently hit other universities, including Columbia, where attackers leaked student data, allegedly as part of politically motivated hacktivist campaign groups.
Welcome back to NTD Good Morning. The Los Angeles Dodgers are the 2025 World Series champions. Fans flooded downtown LA for a victory parade and celebration.
Yeah, they were having a party. The Dodgers players and coaches, they rode a 45-minute parade route, bringing the excitement right through the heart of the city. And NTD's Christina Corona was there and has more from the celebration.
We're here in the heart of downtown LA, where the Dodgers are celebrating their back-to-back World Series championship with a massive parade. Fans lined up early this morning to secure the perfect spot to get a glimpse of their favorite player riding down Grand Avenue on the double-decker bus. There's music, there's chanting, there's dancing. There's something for every Dodger fan to enjoy. Tens of thousands of fans dressed in Dodger blue gathered to see their champions and the World Series trophy cruise through the streets of Los Angeles. The Dodgers defeated the Toronto Blue Jays 5-4 in Game 7 on Saturday night, clinching the team's 9th World Series title, securing their 3rd World Series championship in 5 years.
Man, that was the most stressful game I ever seen in my life, dude. That thing was crazy. It was well-deserved.
The World Series trophy cruised through a 2-mile stretch of downtown Los Angeles, ending at Dodger Stadium. Even the youngest Dodger fans came out to celebrate.
Go Dodgers!
We asked fans who are they most excited to see.
Honestly, the person that I'm really excited for is Mookie.
Yamamoto and the Dodgers, we're champions back-to-back.
Yoshi, shout out to Yoshi, shout out to Mookie. Ohtani, I'm the whole team, I ain't gonna lie. Even Dave Roberts, shout out to Dave Roberts. We live and direct, let's go.
I am excited to see Ohtani and Will Smith.
Some fans said it wasn't just about the players, they came out for the people and the atmosphere.
Been a Dodgers fan since knee-high. I just came out here to see everyone have a good time.
The celebration continued at Dodger Stadium with a sold-out rally featuring the players, team management, entertainment, food, and exclusive merchandise. The Dodgers are now the first team in 25 years to win back-to-back World Series titles. As you can tell, the Dodger fans are excited. They saw all of their favorite players, and many of them are hoping for a three-peat win next year. Reporting from the city of Los Angeles, Christina Corona, NTD News.
Christina Corona, what fun. That's a great report.
Christina, right in the middle of the party there, and they are celebrating, and they have a lot to celebrate. A back-to-back championship in any sport is really hard to do. A three-peat really hasn't happened in any sport in such a long time. And now, of course, they're looking forward to the potential to do it. Though they have won 3 in 5 years, the ability to win 3 in a row, something that would really be quite a story. But they have the team to potentially do it. They've got Shohei Ohtani. They didn't even really need him to pull off that Game 7 win. But I'll tell you, that World Series Game 7, possibly one of the greatest baseball games ever. It was really epic.
Worth the cheers we saw right there, that jubilation. All right, now from modern sports to medieval sports. A group of 5 siblings is taking the world of Renaissance festivals by storm.
That's right. NTD's Daniel Monahan spoke with the Fortress Dwellers. Let's have a look at that.
The Fortress Dwellers consist of 4 brothers and their sister. They are currently touring American Renaissance festivals with their original songs and exciting sword play. Music has always been a part of the Bailey family's life.
We've been singing for a long time together as family at various different places, music festivals, churches, all sorts of places. So we've had a big, long history in music.
They are first-generation Americans, their father emigrating to the U.S. from England. A complicated move from Florida to Oklahoma, where they were without their instruments for some time, helped them hone in on their singing.
And this was many, many moons ago. And we came to Oklahoma, we didn't have any instruments, but we had each other, and so we began singing. That's really where our harmonies began to. We started to harmonize. Dad was in the music industry already, and he knew how to sing, knew all of the ins and outs of music, and got us singing and harmonizing together. Here we are.
With a strong interest in fantasy from childhood, moving into medieval sword play and Renaissance festivals was a natural progression.
All of that has always been a major part of our interest in life. The inspirations like The Lord of the Rings, books like The Lord of the Rings, Strife of the Mighty, and so forth. We've always fancied the sword, fantastical tales and like, and armor.
The Fortress Dwellers even created their own world called Ethland, for which they've made a short film called Fortress Dwellers, Ethland of Memory.
Here you find yourself in a dying world.
So we're always very animated, and we also had very inventive, creative minds. Always dreamers. So as we were growing up, these characters that you see us playing now, they've always existed. He's always been Ethland, he's always been Rome, I've always been North, and this has always been Wolof.
One goal is to take the Ethland characters they have created to the big screen.
There's a Lord of the Rings movie coming up that we have long seen. We were looking to try to hopefully get on that, if it were at all possible. Peter Jackson, when you watch this, we want to be on it.
Faith plays a big role in their journey.
We follow Christ, and he is we're nothing without God. He is the ground on which we are able to do anything on.
And the brothers say they have always found comfort in each other's company.
When we get up stage, we're on stage and we're doing it, and everyone's there, and you look to your comrade, the person who's helping you out, and it's your brother there. And it's like the togetherness is really what I me personally. The fact that we get to do this, we actually get to do this together, and make a career out of it, make a go of it is really, I would say that's what I think about. It's something very special.
Their sister Faith balances the energy of the four Ethland warriors.
She is the rose amongst the thorns, the flower of Ethland. Yes, if you look at pictures of Fortress Dwellers, you'll see, like you said, everyone's in dark apparel, and then she's got these bright colors, and she's lit up like the sunshine.
The Fortress Dwellers tell others to keep the faith when times get hard.
Do you. Just do you, and you always remember that you've got something to add to the world. There's only one you, so don't hide under a bushel. Go out there and do your thing. And if it's unpopular, I mean, look, we're not exactly the demographic you find at the Renaissance Festival. We've made grounds in that way. There's only one you, and that's the you the world needs.
The Fortress Dwellers will be playing at the Viking Renaissance Fair in Pickens, South Carolina on November 8th. You can also find them on Instagram at Fortress Dwellers. Daniel Monahan, NTD News.
Daniel Monahan did it again.
He's
Love
done it
that
again.
Report.
Amazing.
Amazing. What a story. And, you know, they've got such beautiful voices, we heard, but also we saw a djembe there, just a regular drum, flutes, violin, guitar, a bagpipe. They rock it all.
Find your people too, right?
Yeah.
Like, how often do you find that level of talent at a Renaissance fair? But they, you know, with the Lord of the Rings and the Game of Thrones, like, people are enamored with everything sort of medieval, and I mean, their singing was beautiful. They clearly are spiritual. They mentioned how their Christian faith is such an important part of what they do.
That will resonate with a lot of people too.
Fortress Dwellers. I screwed it up, but the Fortress Dwellers. Go check them out.
All right. If you have any feedback on our show or have something you'd like to see us cover, send us an email at goodmorning@ntd.com. You know, we'd love to hear from you.
Around the clock original news coverage, especially today on Election Day. You can watch us live at ntd.com/live or download our NTD app. I'm Carrie Dunst. Thanks for watching.
I'm Stephanie Cox. See you soon.